Football fans, gooners of the world, this is the uncensored Arsenal live stream. One day late, hopefully not a dollar short. And today we it's only George, the ever reliable George, and myself. And we are not going to disappoint you. We are going to do something. We're going to comment on the issue of the week, I suspect. 1 week after England's defeat to Italy and that massive outburst after the game when Saka missed his penalty, when Rashford and Sancho also missed their penalty, and there was a massive racist outburst. I think it's perhaps George, unfair of me to say it was a racist outburst. The first reaction I heard was an immediate sympathy, but then it turned into something like a racial issue. Am I correct in my review of the events of last week? Just the initial reaction.
I don't know. It's difficult because that might be the initial reaction that people in the media wanted to put over to you or to us. Yeah. But I just think, though, everybody felt sorry for him. When I say everybody, you're talking like 90, 95, 100, getting up towards 100% people felt sorry for him, had sympathy for him, understood that he was only 19 and he'd taken the kick and he deserved credit for that.
Yes.
And then a small number of people on Twitter, on social media, brought the race issue into it. And now then we're led to believe that, it was a big thing,
yes.
know, and there's outpourings of sympathy because he'd been racially abused. I don't think it was that much. I mean, I'm not justifying it by any means. There shouldn't be any. But there will always be people prepared to racially abuse other people.
Yes.
And if you give them the limelight, if you say, oh, poor Saka, we need to give him a shirt with his name on it to show that we're supporting him. We need to write endless columns in all the newspapers about how we support him against this torrent of racial abuse. When in reality, it was just one or two people being dicks. So I think it's more what we're trying. They're doing what our government and the American government have been trying to do for a long time, and that's build a divide, cause a divide. Well, there's us good guys, and there's these bad guys over here.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden we should, and we're making them out to be as big a group as us. Well, they're not. They're just a few absolute wankers. But because we're giving them all this energy, they take off, and that'll encourage other people to do exactly the same thing because now they get in the limelight. And all they'll do is they'll adjust the language to make it that it's not quite illegal. You say, oh, we'll ban them if they use this word.
Mm.
So what they'll do is they'll go on to use this word instead.
Yes, George.
They can
as I call it, code words.
Yeah, they can still be racist.
Mm-hmm.
But they can hold their hands up and say, well, you didn't tell me I couldn't say that word.
Mm-hmm.
You can't ban me for that. You can't send me to jail for this. But we all know what they're doing. We all know they're being racist.
Yes.
It's just to adjust the language. So I think what we're doing by shining the spotlight on it, these few sad individuals are empowered. And I don't think that's a good thing because it'll just encourage those teetering on the brink of being a sad individual to go that way.
George, George, by the way, well, this is going to go out on both our our blogs as a podcast, but we're doing this live, and I see two persons on watching us right now, and I hope that they will pose questions, and I hope they are subscribers because we need subscribers in this kind of interactive media. That is just encouragement to the two viewers. Please post your comments. We welcome you, but understand we're not in here for the numbers per se. We are going to podcast this, and it's going to be of course, it's live streaming on YouTube as well as on Twitter. But George, I was reluctant to take on this issue because I thought it was just a lot of, Boris Johnson calls it gesturing. He's not your favorite person. Virtue signaling. But it's more than that, George. As you say, the politicians and the media are intent on dividing us. They're intent on dividing us, George, dividing us on race, dividing us on sex, male versus female, divide us on our sexual orientation, divide us on our nationality. And
Religion.
meanwhile, George, and I think you're quite sensitive to this, I saw an amazing statistic on American TV recently. The top 10%, 30, 40 years ago, only had like 20 or so percent of American wealth. But today they have over 60 odd percent. And I think that it earns clicks, it earns views, but they're doing nothing, George, to address the problem, the real issues. People have animosity to other races, but look at football, for instance. There are only 2 black coaches, I understand, in the entirety of the football league. There is absolutely no black referee in the doing top level refereeing. After Uriah Rennie, you remember him, George? He suffered all kinds of abuse for any mistake he made. And I think that any guy who aspired to be a referee, black guy, said, no, I can't deal with this. Perhaps, do you see where I'm going with this, George?
Yeah, well, what I see is that there is a divide, that there is a lot of racism in every country.
Yes.
Some are worse than
others. If I told you, I'm a black man, George, Afro-Caribbean, into America. And, George, you'd be surprised at some of the attitudes, I don't know if you're aware of it, that some of us black people have towards whites. And yet I told you that I think the relationships between blacks and whites are perhaps better than most other races. I may be wrong. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, that's a point that I was about to make, that there are racists.
Yes.
But every discussion, there's less and less nuance,
right,
and more black and white.
Yes.
And that's not being a pun. It's racism, white and black.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that simple. Like you say, in where I live, the racism is mainly against Asian people.
Yes, you told me about that.
Not black, Asians.
Yes.
And the Asian people don't like the white people. Not all of them. See how I'm starting to generalize as well?
Right.
What I'm saying is, there's a large portion of Asians don't like white people. There's a large portion of white people don't like Asians. A large part of you go into Manchester, go to Chinatown. A lot of the Chinese people don't like white people. It's just everywhere you go in the world, there'll be a race of people, and they don't like another race of people. It'll be a different race. Right. You go to Australia, for instance. It's very similar to where I'm led to believe from my sister who lives in Australia that it's the Asians that they don't like in Australia. It's not even the Aboriginal people. The the
George,
real Australians.
George, it is called the other. Now that's a concept. You know, we always love to hate the other, and some cultures are more insular than others, and you know that is just a part of human nature. And that is why I think trying to make trying to hype the racism is simply a way of it's not constructive. It's just a way to win clicks, a way to bring attention to the, you know, and it's not, like I say, it's not addressing the underlying problem. In football, the kneeling, does the kneeling help? I think the fact that more when I started watching English football, George, you, you know, it's going long, far way longer than most people realize. But let's say in the 70s, when there was a team with Laurie Cunningham and the Luther Blissett, I think they played for different teams. But Watford, they had 3 black players. It was a human. I started watching them. Now it's commonplace. People accept that if you're talented, you will be selected. When John Barnes went to Liverpool, he was the only black guy, you remember? And we in Jamaica started watching Liverpool. Now today, if a black guy goes to Liverpool, who cares? That's far more progress than we have ever seen. Go ahead, George. You want to say something?
Yeah, that's a point. When John Barnes started playing for Liverpool, all the Jamaican people started watching Liverpool. And why was that? Yeah. Because they like a Jamaican guy.
Right.
More than they like a white guy. It's as simple as that. Do you know what I'm saying here?
Right.
It's not.
Well, George, I love Rush. I like how Rush used to score goals, but Ian Rush. But you see what I mean, George? Go ahead.
I went to train martial arts in Japan.
Yes.
And I can tell you, the Japanese don't like anybody.
They're very insular culture.
Very insular. They didn't like the Chinese. They think they're subhuman. In the Second World War, they thought American soldiers were subhuman.
Yes.
And that's just the way it is.
Bombs on them. What the hell do you expect?
Well, yeah. But you have to think, why did they bomb them? You think the Japanese soldiers were eating American soldiers while they were still alive. Eating bits off them and keeping them alive to keep the meat fresh. You know, so there's terrible things went on all sides. But the point is that you say, oh, racism. Yes, there's racism. You've got to accept first that normally people like their own. They have there's a comfort in your own.
Correct.
What you have to do in society is to try and make your own that you naturally like more inclusive. And that's why you say, like, oh, there's areas like people tell you that London's very cosmopolitan and people of different races get on well together. In London, you know, there's not as much racism. This is what I'm told.
Yes.
And then you think, yeah, well, I'll tell you why that is. It's because now you're a Londoner and you don't like anybody outside London. You don't like these northern bastards.
Well spoken by a northerner.
No, that's what it is. They've now got a different little subculture. Their own is London.
Yes.
And they've accepted all the different races, but they still don't like somebody. And who is it? Somebody from outside of London. And
well, George, by the way, Phil Kennedy, your great supporter, George. But a subscriber to this live stream, Phil, welcome. He says we are the ebony and ivory of Arsenal Twitter. But you know, Phil, I'm gonna tell you something, Phil. 15 years ago, I was on another blog, and from the I don't know if George was there before. I was there before him, and from the minute we started tweeting, George and I just found ourselves like kindred souls. And we when George left that blog, I followed him and supported him everything he do. And you know, Phil, and I'll tell the audience, the point is, that in football, I found, and even in personal life, I've found no other more loyal friend than Blackburn George. I mean, every venture that I that I undertake, he's there with me.
There has to be somebody.
And that I don't know. I find it very difficult to get in this division by race. We got to unite against our real enemies. But I'm tempted to think that I'm tempted to call a name of a certain manager as our real enemy, George. But I won't say it outright. Yeah, I'll leave you to guess. But George, what do you think about that?
Joking apart, you think everybody's out. There's this like your professional wokeism at the moment.
Yes, it is.
Everybody wanting to be seen to being woke and how good a person they are. And virtue signaling, that's what it is basically.
Yes.
And nobody's willing to accept.
I'm such an anti-racist.
Yeah. And you're either a racist or you're not now. There's no nuance at all. It's some guy with Doc Martens, a skinhead, and waving an England flag in one hand and a baseball bat in the other, chasing a black guy down the road.
Yes.
Is the same as the guy in the shop who looks twice at a black guy because he thinks he might be shoplifting. There's no.
But George,
there's no
distinction. George, I'm very opposed. By the way, George, I know I'm interrupting you, but I am also equally opposed to these so-called call them. I'm really anti-racists in America who are burning down white stores, hurling racial invectives at white people, and then think that they're advancing the movement. George, like I told you guys in the chat, in our DM chat, I used to be a 1960s, late stage Black Power advocate because I was young. So I had a huge afro. I supported Tommy Green and Juan Carlos in the Black Power salute. I read every book by Stokely Carmichael, Huey Newton, the whole 9 yards, George. And then I got into this whole thing. Well, Martin Luther King is a punk, and all those guys from the Black Panthers were the real thing. George, I soon realized that trying to that is not carrying humanity very far. And I keep, I guess I'm repeating myself. We have common enemies. I mean, look at the state of football. Two black coaches right across the league. Absolutely no black referee. And if a black referee steps in the ring, he is assailed by racial invective if he gets a decision wrong. We need to move beyond that. And
this is the problem. This is the problem. We say we have to do that, and you've got all these outraged people. Let's say they all would be nodding their head saying, "Shotter, yeah, yep. I agree, yeah." What are they going to do about it? Fuck all. No. Absolutely fucking nothing. If there's nobody to listen to them saying how anti-racist they are, they won't give it a fucking thought. They're not really anti-racist. They just it's this new bandwagon that they can jump on.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not. That's a broad brush I'm painting with. It's not everybody, of course, but it's nobody's actually doing anything about it because. And the biggest problem for me is that your average man, whatever race he is, whatever religion he is, whatever sexual orientation he or she has, is reluctant to admit that they have prejudice.
There you go.
They have some inbuilt prejudice. That they've been brought up in a way to think. And there's prejudice there. Nobody wants to admit it. I'm perfect. I'm anti-racist. I like gay people.
I
I don't
posted
mind.
something
I
on
don't
Twitter.
mind what religion you are. You can be Muslim. You can be Christian. I love you just the same.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's that guy when they're speaking on the internet, but none of them are that guy. None of
Right, right. They're hiding behind an avatar.
Of course they are, and the kid they're trying to kid you, and probably kid themselves, saying, "Oh, I'm not racist." I would like to go back to my childhood and say, at no point have I ever been racist, but I can't say that. I'm sure there'll be somebody who'll be able to point and say, "Well, what about that you said?" I'd
Right.
forgotten about it. Of
Yeah.
course, I've forgotten. I would probably have forgotten about it because it
Right.
meant nothing at the time because that was just the way it was.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to admit that they have prejudice and they live the life that way. And all we can do, you can't do away with prejudice and racism. All you can do is every day educate more people and slowly, slowly, slowly move along. Move along that band
Right.
nearer an equal society, a
Yep. Yep.
nearer a fairer society,
Yep.
because you're never going to go. And that's the problem with governments and people who vote. Some fucker comes along and goes, "I'll fix this."
Oh,
And
yep.
it's something that's been going on for hundreds of years, and they'll go, "I'll fix that. Vote for me." And you think, "Oh, that's good. They're going to fix racism. Oh, that's good. They're going to fix hate crime. Oh, that's good. They're going to fix bullying on the internet."
Yeah.
No, they're fucking not. And we keep falling for it time and time and time again, believing that they can do something. Well, they can't. All they can do, all any of us can do, is edge people a little bit closer to being a better person. And the only way you can do that is by setting an example and not tolerating bad behavior, whatever it is
Exactly.
about.
Exactly.
You make it
And you know,
socially unacceptable, and even if you go to your think, well, there's only 2 black managers, you should be saying to them, "Well, why have you not interviewed this guy?"
yes.
You should be asking questions. Why? Why are we
Yeah.
not doing this? Why didn't Chris Hughton get an application, get an
Yes.
interview?
There's a
And
knocking
that's
in
all
the
you can
background.
do.
Here.
And
There's a knocking in the
hopefully,
background. Sorry, George. There's a knocking in the background. I have to apologize to the listeners. Keep going, George.
as a society, as a world, you gradually move along to be in a better world. My problem is this last 5 years in this country, we're moving backwards. We're getting worse.
Well, George, that's the point. With all the wokeism and the
I mean, sorry, Cotter, we've made Europeans our enemy now.
you
You
are
know
like,
what I mean? We're fucking racist towards them now. We don't want them coming here. These Polacks and coming stealing our jobs. It's the same fucking thing. Different fucking race, same enemy, somebody else.
well, George, I have my theory. I mean, England out in the it's the Atlantic, correct? Right? You're out in the Atlantic. Um, you have been you develop by warring with Europe, by separating yourself from Europe. And you developed a huge empire by being a sea power. So and that's about, George, 500 years of that. People want to change that overnight. Anyway, George, I think we have beat this one to death. We are not politicians. Hopefully not. I try to keep politics out of the football, and how desperately I was like, I really do. I'm not sure I have my own, people can probably know, I have my strong ideas, but this is, I didn't make this a political platform. I have my reasons for not having a political platform. I think sports should unite, not divide. And I see a lot of this happening in sports, and I think it's not good for sports.
Well, I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't disagree
Well,
more.
You know what I mean. But
We
George, people must have their political views. I'm not telling people not
shut
to.
it.
Go ahead.
I'm talking about sports.
Yes.
People celebrate divisions in sport. Look at you.
Political divisions, George. I know.
And you look at the internet on Arsenal Twitter.
Yes.
And you see these massive accounts, and all they do is slag off somebody else because he wears a different coloured shirt.
Oh yeah, George.
So that's okay. That's fine. Or you can hate all these Tottenham bastards. You can hate all these United people. That's good to have that division. What's the difference? That you can dislike someone for the colour of the shirt, but not for the colour of the skin. It doesn't make sense to me.
George,
to me at all.
George, bring this to Arsenal. I mean, one of the things that impressed me when I started supporting this club was it was multinational and it played the most beautiful football in the world, and it had a French manager who believed in playing football. And I thought this was a different club. But George, we'll discover that we are, Arsenal fans are just like the rest of fans. They started slagging Wenger as an old French cunt. Do you remember how they humiliated Eboué song because of their race? Do you remember the code message certain bloggers used to use at Adebayor that what his mother was? Elephant, some bullshit. It was, and I was like, this club is no different. I mean, what we do, but Wenger kept me in the game when he said, I don't look at passports when I select my team. And I said, great, any great footballer from anywhere in the world can aspire to play for Arsenal. And that is what, and I'm not, I don't want to generalize, but I felt that this was a value that the fans supported. Much to my amazement, it was skin deep, George.
It was, of course. What the fans supported was that we were a good team and we were going unbeaten for a season.
Yes.
And if they were black players, that was fine. But I'm sure they would still have preferred if they were white players. Because that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. It's the way it was. I don't know. I know.
Well, George, you and I are not going to solve racism in
No, I mean, I know as much about politics and racism as I do about football, and you can write that on the back of a fucking postage stamp, really.
Yes.
So.
Well, I think it needs more than a postage stamp. You have a lot of ideas. I see you on Twitter, George. I follow you. George, I'd like to I know we're not going to do the entire hour thing here today, but I would like to discuss for a moment, and as far as it impacts Arsenal, is the expectations of English fans out of this Euro. I didn't watch it very closely, but when I watched them play, it was Ukraine. And I think that was just before I reached the finals, correct, George? They played Ukraine to reach the finals? But in any event, I mean, I read all the hype. It's coming home. I saw the players. I saw how they played. I didn't think it was... Then I saw Italy play. I saw Italy play Spain. And I concluded that Italy had a far more technical midfield that would dominate England. The day before the game, I tentatively tweeted it, but I didn't want to have the rage of English Twitter on me by saying that it was, England was likely to be outplayed. What do you make of the English team? Because, by the way, George, before you answer, England was thoroughly outplayed by Italy. The scoreline doesn't tell this. 60-odd% possession. I think it's 62 versus 38. They had far more passes. They had far more attempts at goal. And I, for one, was never confident of England in a penalty shootout. But, George, why don't you think that the English chances were overhyped? Your thoughts?
Yeah, of course. But I think that's natural. It's like if you run a poll on Twitter now, asking where do you think Arsenal will finish at the end of the season, you'll get like 50% of people saying we're going to finish top 5, top 4.
Top 4, yes.
That's it. And we're not. We're, no chance. But it doesn't matter because people are optimistic.
And dear you and I say,
they hope for the best.
George, dear you and I say no, we're gonna finish top 8, and they'll say they're already saying they're disloyal.
Yeah, of course they will. But and it's the same with England. People, this is the best team we've had for generations, and all the press. I mean, and you see Arsenal Twitter, it was all about Saka. He was carrying the England team. If you're a Manchester City fan, it was Sterling that was carrying the English team. If you're a West Ham fan, it was
Declan Rice.
All the fans want to be optimistic about their own team.
You're a Spurs fan. You're a Spurs fan. It's can't carry.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
And I understand that people want to be optimistic.
Yes.
At the beginning of every season, it's going to be our season. Otherwise, what's the fucking point? You've got to look forward to something. And it's depressing being like me and thinking, well, we're going to finish 8th, I think.
George,
is it? And you can say it's realism, but sometimes a bit of fantasy is a good thing. Well, let people, it's the same like what we're signing Ben White, and all of a sudden he's the best English centre back, and he's a Rolls Royce of a player. He's that good that he didn't get a kick of the ball for England. And any videos I've seen him are of people skinning him and leaving him sat on his arse.
Rashford.
All of a sudden, and Saka. He did it to him as well. You see, all of a sudden, but we want to believe that. We want to believe we're spending £50 million on him and he's going to be a great success. And
1 second, George. Biso, you got to get your video up and we appreciate your presence, knowing your time zone. Yes, George, but go ahead.
Yeah, I can't remember what I was saying now. Biso's interrupted me.
Well, it took Biso to just interrupt us. Go. I'm going to add her, George.
Go.
Biso, welcome. George just lost the trend of his thought, and I can't help him.
I was so excited. I lost my mind.
But we were talking about we're on a home stretch, Bison. We're really very happy to have you, as you know. But we were here talking about the hyping of England, and then George was talking about Ben White and how he's the Rolls Royce of reportedly the English centre backs. But actually, George just put it in the context of the triumph of hope over experience, saying we don't have any experience, this guy, but everybody is hoping that he will transform Arsenal. And that was where we were at. And we were just comparing it to England. People saying England will win the Euro, when if you thought about it, if you ever really looked at Italy versus England, England started off as distinct a second choice, and we're saying people don't want to hear that. People want hope over reason. So we're talking about Arsenal now, and this Ben White thingamajig. You might want to connect it to England. I don't know how you want to go. You look as if you just came.
I just
Go ahead.
Okay. What was the question?
What do you think of Ben White as the fellow who's going to transform Arsenal? Yeah.
I mean, like George was saying, we love to whip ourselves into a frenzy. We want to hope for the best. We want to hope that Arsenal Football Club, they're making the best decisions. And before they arrived at Ben White, they've looked into some crystal ball and decided, he's going to be the world's best defender, and that must be the reason why Arsenal is spending 50 million on this player. But we don't know, and if we want to go by the evidence of the players that the club has been bringing in the last few seasons, or even the decision-making process at Arsenal Football Club, it gives me cause for concern, and at the end of the day, as an Arsenal fan, I want Ben White to work as a player, but I don't know, one's just going to have to, cross our fingers and hope it works out as a signing. And I guess the only thing that's surprising me about our window is the fact that the club appears to be spending, quite some money, despite the fact that we didn't have, despite the fact that we're in a lot of debt at the moment, and we seem to be in the mood to spend some money. So let's see what they do at the end of the window. I think I'm just going to keep my opinion about what next season will be like until the end of the window, when I've seen all the other players that they've transferred in.
Well, Barca clubs will go mad. Barca was spending 120 million euros, I think, on Griezmann, even though they were broke. They were spending 70 million euros on Dembele, even though they were broke. They were giving Messi a 300 million euro a year salary, though they were broke. Their FA has said you have to have a wage cut. I think it's like from 800 to 400 million euros a year. Don't quote me on that, but some amazing figure like that, because obviously the Spanish football cannot do without Barca, so they're going to keep them in there for some other Norwich club that'll kick them out. George, are you surprised by this proposed spending?
No, because we don't know how much the spend is going to be, or where it's coming from, or where it's going to end up. Is it going to end up on the debt on the books as debt? Obviously, it will for me. So we don't know who we're going to sell, but it comes down to every season we have a player that comes in and we pin our hopes on him. Yes. Partey was going to transform us. Pepe was going to transform us.
Torreira was going to transform us. Remember, George?
Who?
Torreira.
Yeah, Torreira. Yeah.
Yeah, we picked up Torreira, and he was going to be the DM that was going to.
But it's natural. What I'm saying is, it's natural because people want to look forward to good times.
Yes.
You don't plan to go out to a party and think it'll be shit at that party. You're going to a party to have fun. You're going to a football match because you want to enjoy it. You want to think that we're going forward. And I can understand that, it's a lot of money though, £50 million. What got me was they went to Brighton and said, we'll give you 40 million. They said, no, it's 50. We'll give you 45. No, it's 50. Go on, then we'll give you 50. Yeah, all right.
Plus a sell-on clause.
Plus, we've got a sell-on clause now. What?
Man, that sell-on clause. Oh my goodness.
What if it becomes worth £100 million? We want 30% of that. He ain't like, yeah, okay. Well, fucking hell. We're like spending like a drunken sailor. Yes. It's like buying him at any cost. It was the same last season. We fucked about all summer, and then on the last day, we ran into a fucking bank in Barcelona, in Madrid, with a suitcase full of money and bought Thomas Partey for full price.
Check.
Pepe, we paid fucking full price plus about 30 million on top just to get into selling. It's
George,
where's it
George,
going? Oh, it's a worry. I mean, people criticise Stan Kroenke for not spending and investing, but if you look back at our record in the last 3 years, if I were him, I'd say no,
well,
no. Not having any because every time you squander it. It's like a little child. You give them fucking £5 in pocket money and they come back with a big basket full of donuts. You think, well, that was to last you all week. Stuffing donuts in the
I wish
face.
I wish it was my parents when I was going to high school. If you knew the pocket money, I like to tell my kids. I mean, I barely had any pocket money. I mean, and I'm giving you all this money every day. That was my lesson to that. But I wish you know what it is, George, and the reason why I say that. By the way, guys, we have lost all our viewers already. And that is to tell you, perhaps I don't know if they're on. Maybe we are seeing those on YouTube. Maybe they're on Twitter. I don't know. But um, that's to tell you that this part of the discussion is, as you said, George, is too realistic. It's too, you know, that we're or it's too factual. The Cronkies have spent when everybody wants Cronky out. Ehab, who's not here today, said it was like he estimates that they've spent at least £300 million since Wenger left to make us eighth. And talking about pocket money, Josh, who we read, Dad made as his full-time representative at Arsenal, has been able to get Dad to cough up money. And I'm not sure, so you spoke about this yesterday on Twitter. I'm not sure Ben White can solve our problem of creating and scoring goals. No, I'm going to let you answer, but I did give Arteta the benefit of the doubt. I said if he wants a ball-playing centre-back and who can get the ball out of defense, either by passing it or making passes that break the lines. But what, in your opinion, is Ben White going to do for us?
Exactly that. You know, so Ateta wants a one defender who is a ball playing defender, and the other one who maybe is a little bit aggressive and is able to clean up at the back. Now, our centre back partnerships last season was one of such. You know, he wanted to have David Luiz and Gabriel, with David Luiz doing the passing out from the back and stretching out the midfield and making the pitch wider, which is long range passing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Gabriel will focus on defending, keeping touch tight with attackers and the rest of them. And then on the other hand, we had Holding and Marie. Marie does that on the left side with his passing, and Holding is the one to focus on, the defending. Now, if we're going forward and we say Gabriel is the main guy on the left side of the midfield, then he's going to want to replace the right side of midfield with a ball playing defender. And the only issue that I have with this Ben White transfer, to be honest, I don't have any opinion about what kind of player he is, whether he's going to fit into Arsenal good. I'm just going to have to wait and see, because I never really paid him much attention at Brighton, right?
Yeah.
But based on articles that I've read on his profile, he is a ball-playing defender. So let's hope that he's able to come in and play in such a way that we don't miss David Luiz, because I think everyone can see that when David Luiz wasn't in the side, there was a big problem of progressing that ball out from the back. So let's hope that Ben White is able to fulfill that role. I know that Saliba would have been able to fulfill that role because he's done it season after season in the La Liga, and he's done a fantastic job. And he has some of the best passing stats in La Liga in the last, for a defender, anyways, in the last few seasons that he's played there. So let's hope that Ben White can be that, replacement that we're looking for. But we need somebody with David Luiz range of skills in passing. I don't know if Ben White can do it, but we can only wait and see.
Well, if you think it's a problem now, wait till Xhaka leaves.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, because
Yeah.
there's nobody to direct the play. And by the way, George, and by the way, Biso, David Luiz learned these skills over years. You remember he was first at Chelsea, an over-aggressive defender, prone to mistakes. Then he went to PSG. I know who he fell out with. He fell out with the guy from Italy, I think. Correct, George? He fell out with the guy from Italy, and they sold him off to PSG. Conte. I think my memory serves me right. But this is the guy who was in Brazil team that got 7-0 from Germany. I'm not taking down David Luiz. I'm saying that the David Luiz that we know today is a player that took practically 10 years to learn his craft. We are talking about throwing Ben White, who just came on the scene 1 year because he was on loan the year before, He was on loan the year before on some team in the championship. Or maybe my memory serves me right. So, I know that this part of the broadcast in particular will not be loved by fans, but I think it's, as George said originally, we are throwing our hopes on someone who is unproven and expecting that we will be top 4 next year.
It has to work. It has to work. I'm sorry. It has to. Because I remember when last season when we're discussing, how do we translate this defense and how do we transition from David Luiz and the rest of them. I said, look, we have to get in a vastly experienced defender into that defense. Because the most experienced person that we had there is Rob Holding. Can you imagine that? And that's
yes,
the player
I don't imagine it. I know.
And that's the player who we're expecting to be just that backup, right? So we needed to have Saliba back in the squad, and then we signed a very experienced defender, and then we can transition in such a way that in a year, 2 years' time, Saliba is ready to fully take on the reins. But now we're going even to someone with even less experience. Yes, he has Premier League experience, but we're splashing all this money on this player and we're expecting him to come in and take full control of that defense. I hope it works, but it's literally the same thing as the club appointing Arteta on the basis of the fact that he worked with Pep Guardiola. That's literally what we're doing right now with the team itself. So we have an inexperienced coach, we have an inexperienced defense. We're going to sell Xhaka and probably bring in, someone young because, we're focusing on youth, this time around, right? And we're going to bring in someone young. And so we have this mixed match of inexperienced coaching with inexperienced players. Top 4 has to be on the cards.
Well, what could go wrong, George? I'm going to let you have the last word on this. I'm not going to prolong this too much, but George, Paisa is right. We are relying on inexperienced players. Tavares scored a goal yesterday. Brilliant goal, Mehmeti. La Congo can't barely make Belgium team. So all these young players are going to make us get top 4, George?
No, they're not. No, they're not. So what we'll get this season is we're in transition.
Right.
Another transitional season. You watch.
Yes.
3 months into the season, everybody will be saying, "Oh, it's a transitional season."
Oh yes.
Let him get these players settled in. we'll be better. We will be better because we want to be better. We have to be better. But there's no actual indications that we're going to get better. People think that, eighth twice was bad. I'm not sure it's the bottom we've reached. Not by quite a long way. And we'll see. Let's hope Ben White works. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good player. I think he could be a good investment long term. But he's not going to change the team. He's not. He's replacing David Luiz. He's not as good as David Luiz.
Right.
His age profile's better, but just as an immediate replacement, he's not as good as David Luiz. And whoever this kid from Belgium, if he's to replace Xhaka, dear me, he's miles away. Miles away. He's not El Neni standard. Never mind Xhaka standard. And he's going to replace Xhaka. So we're going to struggle, And then you look at the other end. You got Aubameyang. He seems to get worse with every ball he kicks. Lacazette looks like he might be leaving. Eddie's going to be going. We're putting all our hopes on Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe, and they look decent prospects, but there's a long way between being a prospect and being a top player. Let's hope they get there.
Thank you, George. We're going to be previewing the season. It's 4 weeks to go. There'll be ample opportunities. We'll see what the final results of the window are. And, I only hope that you and Baiso don't get run off Twitter with your skepticism. Thank you very much for the time. Thank you very much for coming on. People, remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need your support for us to get any traction on that platform. If you want to hear a different point of view, we think we are factual and we are truthful. We urge you, I beg of you to subscribe, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And this will be also podcasted. Thank you, George. Thank you, Baiso. It's been good.
Back to bed now.
Guys, Baiso, where's she?
Gone.
Oh, God. I wanted to talk to her.